So you just beat a fantastic video game. You're watching the credits roll and you're thinking to yourself, man, I wish there was another game to continue this awesome story. Video game sequels are nothing new to the gaming world, dating back all the way to 1972. These games aren't necessarily better than their previous entries in the franchise, but they've had to have had improvements on already existing game mechanics or something completely different that's just as good, if not better, than the older game mechanics. So, now for the rules. Only one game per franchise, only games I've played can be on this list. I had to have had played the original version of the game as a comparison to its sequel, and the game doesn't have to be the second in the series to be counted, like if a game has multiple entries in its franchise, but the one catch is the game has to have had some form of connectivity to its previous predecessors to qualify for it being on the list, such as a certain character still being present from the previous games, or the stories being continued from the last installment. And no remakes or reboots can be on this list. This is Crow of Murder 15's Top 10 Video Game Sequels.
Damn! He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
Street Fighter has become one of the most recognized fighting games to date, and it didn't get its start until Street Fighter 2 came out. A lot of people forget that there was indeed a first Street Fighter game before 2 came out, and judging by the gameplay of the first Street Fighter game, it's kind of clear why the first one was almost completely forgotten about. While it's true I prefer some of the later Street Fighter games that would come out later, I feel that if we didn't have Street Fighter 2, we wouldn't have the foundation for later games in the series.
Of course!
Yeah, you knew that was coming.
Damn! He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
Similar to Street Fighter 2, Super Mario Bros. 3 set the foundation for almost every 2D platform Mario game that has come after it. However, in this case, the first Super Mario Bros. Game was fantastic. With Super Mario Bros. 3 releasing near the end of the NES's life cycle, it pushed the limits of what this system was capable of. It brought the now famous overhead world map to explore and introduced different paths that players could take to reach their end goal. But even through all of these games, one question still remains. How does Princess Peach keep getting kidnapped over and over again?
Do you get off on being captured? You stupid bitch! Easy there, buddy. Do you think I don't have a life?
Damn! He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
Let's be honest for a second. We didn't play Donkey Kong Country to play as Donkey Kong. We wanted to play it for his new little sidekick, Diddy Kong. And when Rare graced us with Diddy's Conquest, we were introduced to an equally cool character, Dixie Kong. While the pirate motif of the game was meh, the gameplay and level design for this game was great. It also introduced some new animal companions such as Squitter the Spider and Radley the Rattlesnake. It also introduced secret areas that you could collect coins to introduce an entire new map that would become a new staple for the franchise. Too bad Dixie's Double Trouble had to introduce Kiddy Kong.
Damn! He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
Portal was supposed to be a small, down-to-earth puzzle game that borrowed elements from Half-Life. With it becoming a huge success, the developers at Valve expanded on the idea with Portal 2. Portal 2 gave the series something that was much needed: a story. Sure, we were given breadcrumbs here and there throughout the first game, but it wasn't until the second game that we got a real understanding of what was really going on at Aperture Science. We were introduced to new parts of the lab, new robots.
God, you look good. Looking good, actually.
And even projects that Aperture Science were working on and then abandoned. Also, casting J.K. Simmons as Cave Johnson, a stroke of genius.
Do you know who I am? I'm the man who's gonna burn your house down with the lemon. I'm gonna get my engineers to invent a combustible lemon that burns your house down.
Damn! He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
Yes, I know that this game is a bit overrated, but hear me out on this. The first Mega Man was a great starting point for the franchise, no questions there. But it wasn't until Mega Man 2 that this game really came out into its own. It introduced the mechanic of having to fight 8 bosses rather than just 6, and it also gave us one of the most memorable video game soundtracks to date. And while later games did give us things like the slide and the Mega Buster charge shot, it laid the groundwork for many more games to come. And we finally got a new Mega Man game in development! Thank you, Capcom! Now let's just hope it's better than Mighty Number 9.
Damn! He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
I haven't played any of the other Kingdom Hearts games after 2, so that's why I'm sticking with this one. Kingdom Hearts 2, like most of the games on this list, built on a great system and made it better. The battle system was completely amped up, complete with new abilities and even form changes. Some of the new worlds were pretty sweet as well, along with getting to visit some old locations. And even though we were introduced to Organization 13 and Chain of Memories, we get to dwell a little deeper on what was really going on with the group of nobodies. And now Kingdom Hearts 3 is finally in development, and we're getting a release on Xbox One and PS4. I imagine how we'll be telling our grandchildren on how long we had to wait for Kingdom Hearts 3.
It's been 84 years.
Damn! He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
Out of all the sequels on this list, Resident Evil 4 is the game changer on here. At this point in the Resident Evil series, we were used to the awkward controls and camera angles, but Resident Evil 4 introduced an entirely new style of gameplay that would be used continuously for future Resident Evil games. That is until Resident Evil 7 came out, and I haven't played it yet, but I really want to. While it isn't directly connected with earlier Resident Evil games other than Leon and Ada Wong being in the main campaign of the game, it paved for the way for many games in the future with different mechanics, for better or worse.
No, 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 no!
Damn! He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
I'm gonna get this out of the way now. As far as a game by itself, I enjoyed Arkham Knight more, but in a list about sequels and how much they improved from the previous game, Arkham City stands quite a bit more than Arkham Knight did. Arkham City expanded the Batman universe tenfold compared to Asylum. We were introduced to new villains, side quests, and a much needed expansion in Overworld. Not to mention, there were quite a few twists and turns throughout the story. And even though it doesn't really add anything to the gameplay, there were tons of different costumes to pick from so you could play as your favorite variation of Batman. Though the Arkham series is over, I highly recommend picking up Return to Arkham to replay this awesome masterpiece. Now where's Penguin at? I've got some unfinished business with that little Danny DeVito wannabe.
Oh, you get...
Damn! He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
You've seen this game on quite a few of my other top 10 countdowns, so you knew it was going to be on this list. But why Borderlands 2 lands so high on this list is because of how much it expanded from the first game. While Borderlands 1 was loads of fun, the second one actually gave a large amount of story elements and some much needed character development for some of these characters from the first game. The new classes were an absolute delight as well. It's just a shame that you didn't get to see a lot of interaction between the new class of characters, between the old characters and the old classes. Yeah, they would spew out one-liners from time to time, but it would have been really cool to see how these new types of characters would interact with the older characters, kind of like how they did in Tales of the Borderlands. Well, at least they're in development for Borderlands 3, so the countdown is on!
Counting down. 10, 9. I got bored.
Damn! He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
Now, this holds a lot of nostalgia for me, and there might be some nostalgia blindness, but hear me out and stick with me on this. Pokemon Gold and Silver. Now, it might not be the most advanced sequel out there, but here's what it added from the original red, blue, and yellow versions that we all started with. A completely new region to explore. 100 brand new Pokemon, including evolutions from previous Pokemon, 2 new Pokemon types for better balancing in battle, a day and night mechanic that is still being utilized to this day, and the ability to go back to the Kanto region and see how much has changed since your adventures from the previous game. And let's not forget one of the biggest Pokemon battles in Pokemon history. fighting your previous character from the first game, Red. And if you want an even better version of these awesome sequels, I highly recommend playing the Heart Gold and Soul Silver versions. While it's true that the later Pokemon games added their own elements to the series, nothing had quite an impact on it like Gold and Silver. I'm Crow of Murder 15, and now I'm going to do some research on Exeggutor's Alola form and figure out how the hell it's part dragon!
'Cause I'm having a good time, having a good time. You shouldn't start leaping through the sky like a tiger.